A woman with no friends is not always lonely. Sometimes she is healing. Sometimes she is finally breathing after years of being surrounded by people who knew her usefulness but never learned her heart. Sometimes she is sitting in the quiet because the noise costs too much. Sometimes she is not isolated by rejection, but separated by wisdom. And sometimes what the world calls emptiness is really the sacred space where God is putting her back together. People may look at her life and make quick judgments. They may wonder why her phone is quiet, why her calendar is not full, why she does not always have a group of women around her, why she walks into places alone, leaves alone, eats alone, prays alone, dreams alone. They may pity what they do not understand. They may assume something is wrong with her because she no longer measures her worth by how many people can reach her. But beloved, there are seasons when God will remove the crowd so you can hear your own soul again. There are seasons when He will allow certain friendships to fade, not because you are unlovable, but because you were becoming fragmented trying to keep them alive. You were showing up fully and receiving crumbs. You were listening deeply and being answered shallowly. You were celebrating others while your own victories passed quietly. You were forgiving repeatedly until forgiveness became expected and neglect became normal. And one day, your soul became tired. Not bitter, tired. Tired of being the strong one with no place to lay down her strength. Tired of being the listener whose pain never had room. Tired of being the safe place for everyone while wondering who would be safe for you. Tired of connections that required your silence, your shrinking, your overgiving, your emotional labor, your constant understanding. Beloved, exhaustion can become a holy warning. It may be the place where God whispers, "Daughter, this is not love. This is depletion." The original source says, "A woman with no friends is often misunderstood before she is ever truly known, because people see her solitude and imagine emptiness as though the absence of many voices around her means the absence of worth within her. But God sees differently. He sees the road that brought her there. He sees the betrayals she survived quietly. He sees the friendships that made her question her value. He sees the time she gave grace to people who gave her excuses. He sees the way she stayed too long because she did not want to be called difficult, prideful, sensitive, or cold. And he also sees the courage it took for her to finally choose peace. Ask yourself gently, have I been calling myself lonely when I am actually being healed? Have I been grieving the absence of people who only loved me when I was convenient? Have I mistaken a quiet season for proof that I am unwanted? Beloved, loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is the ache of feeling disconnected from love. Solitude, when held by God, is the place where the soul comes home to truth. Loneliness says, I need someone here so I do not have to feel myself. Solitude says, I am willing to sit with myself because God is here too. Loneliness panics in silence. Solitude learns to pray there. Loneliness begs for any company. Solitude waits for the right connection. And there is a great difference between having no friends because your heart is closed and having no friends because your standards have awakened. A healed woman is not against friendship. She is not refusing love. She is not declaring that she needs no one. She is simply no longer willing to betray herself for the appearance of belonging. She understands that connection should feel like safety, not survival. She understands that sisterhood should not require constant performance. She understands that love should not leave her anxious, unseen, drained, or ashamed of her own needs. There was a time when she may have confused familiarity with loyalty. Because someone had been in her life for years, she thought they had earned permanent access. Because they shared memories, she ignored present disrespect. Because they once laughed together, she minimized the way they no longer listened. Because they called her friend, she tolerated behavior that made her feel small. But time does not always prove love. Sometimes time only reveals patterns. And when God begins healing a woman, He teaches her to stop worshiping history. He teaches her to ask better questions. Does this connection honor who I am becoming? Can I be honest here? Is there room for my pain or only my support? Do I leave this relationship more peaceful or more confused? Am I loved or am I useful? Those questions may change your circle. Let them. A smaller circle with peace is better than a crowded life full of emotional hunger. A quiet season with God is better than a noisy season where you keep losing yourself. One true friend who can meet your heart with honesty is better than many people who only want the version of you that never needs anything. Beloved, if you are walking through a season with few or no friends, do not immediately call it punishment. It may be protection. It may be preparation. It may be pruning. It may be God giving your nervous system rest after years of relational chaos. It may be the holy pause where you finally learn what your own voice sounds like without everyone else's expectations drowning it out. You are not broken because you are alone. You may be shedding what no longer fits your spirit. You may be learning that your worth was never tied to how many people stayed. You may be discovering that the presence of God can hold you in rooms where human company is absent. You may be realizing that peace is not boring, drama is not passion, and chaos is not connection. So do not be ashamed of your quiet life. Do not let the world convince you that a woman without a crowd is a woman without value. Your life is still full of meaning when no one is clapping. Your heart is still worthy when no one is calling. Your growth is still real when no one is witnessing it. Your path is still sacred when you walk parts of it alone. God has not forgotten you in the silence. He may be meeting you there. The original source says she did not wake up one morning and decide to cut the world away. She was shaped by moments where she showed up fully and was met halfway, if at all. And beloved, that sentence carries the ache of many women who did not become quiet because they were cold, but because they were tired of pouring into places that never poured back. There is a kind of exhaustion that does not come from work alone. It comes from being emotionally available to people who rarely notice when you are breaking. It comes from carrying conversations, checking on others, remembering their pain, celebrating their wins, praying over their battles, forgiving their absence, explaining their inconsistency, and still looking around when your own heart is heavy and realizing no one has asked, "How are you really?" That kind of tiredness reaches deeper than the body. It reaches the soul. And when a woman finally steps back, people may call her distant without ever asking what made distance necessary. They may call her independent as though independence was her first choice, when sometimes independence was what she learned after support did not show up. They may call her hard when she is actually guarded. They may call her unfriendly when she is simply no longer handing sacred access to people who treat her presence casually. Beloved, not everyone who lost access to you was rejected. Some were released. There is a difference. Rejection comes from hatred. Release comes from wisdom. Rejection says, I want to punish you. Release says, I can no longer abandon myself to keep this connection alive. Rejection burns the bridge in bitterness. Release lowers the burden in peace. A woman being healed by God does not have to slam every door. Sometimes she simply stops forcing open doors that have been closed to her heart for a long time. Ask yourself gently, am I still grieving people God was protecting me from? Am I calling myself abandoned when I may have been delivered from one-sided relationships? Am I missing the person, or am I missing the hope of who I wanted them to be? These are hard questions, but they are holy ones. Because some friendships end long before they officially end. They end when honesty is no longer safe. They end when you realize you are always the one adjusting. They end when you begin to hide your joy because someone else becomes uncomfortable with your growth. They end when your pain becomes inconvenient, your boundaries become offensive, and your silence becomes the only place where you feel respected. You may stay longer than you should because you remember the beginning. You remember laughter, shared secrets, late night conversations, seasons when the bond felt real. And because there was once beauty there, you keep trying to revive what has become unhealthy. You keep watering a friendship that no longer has roots. You keep calling history loyalty, even while the present keeps showing you neglect. Beloved, history is not enough to keep a relationship holy. A friendship must still carry respect. It must still carry care. It must still carry room for both hearts. It must still be able to hold truth without punishment. If you must become smaller, quieter, less honest, less joyful, less discerning, or less yourself to remain connected, then what you are preserving may not be friendship, it may be fear. And God is too loving to let fear dress itself as loyalty forever. This is why some women find themselves alone after a season of awakening. They did not lose everyone because they became unlovable. They lost the version of connection that depended on them being over-available, under-honored, and easy to use. They lost friendships that survived only because they never named what hurt. They lost circles where their role was to support but never need support, listen but never be heard, forgive but never be protected. That loss can hurt. Even when it is right, it can hurt. Do not let anyone tell you that healing does not involve grief. You can know a relationship was draining and still miss the comfort of its familiarity. You can know a friendship was one-sided and still ache when the phone stops ringing. You can know God is protecting you and still feel the emptiness of a quiet room. Faith does not cancel grief. It gives grief a place to be held. Bring that grief to God. Tell Him, Lord, I miss what I hoped this friendship would become. Tell Him, I am tired of being the strong one. Tell Him, I do not want bitterness to grow where love once lived. Tell Him, teach me how to release without becoming hard. He will meet you there. Because the goal is not to become a woman who needs no one. The goal is to become a woman who no longer accepts anything just to avoid being alone. There is a difference between a healed woman and a hardened woman. A hardened woman says, I will never trust again. A healed woman says, I will trust slowly, wisely, prayerfully, with eyes open. A hardened woman locks every door. A healed woman learns which doors require discernment. Beloved, solitude is not meant to make you bitter. It is meant to make you honest. It gives you space to ask what you were tolerating in the name of friendship. It gives you room to notice where you overgave because you feared being forgotten. It helps you see where you confused being needed with being loved. It teaches you that if someone only values you when you are useful, they are not loving you fully. They are using the part of you that serves them. And you are more than what you can give. You are more than your advice, more than your listening ear, more than your strength, more than your prayers, more than your ability to make others feel understood. You are a daughter of God, worthy of care even when you have nothing to offer but your honest heart. So if this is a season where friendships have fallen away, do not rush to fill the empty spaces with anyone who knocks. Let the quiet teach you. Let God restore the places where you were drained. Let Him show you what healthy connection should feel like. Let Him make your spirit sensitive again to peace, consistency, humility, kindness, and truth. The right friendships will not require you to disappear. They will have room for your laughter and your tears, your strength and your tenderness, your wisdom and your weakness. They will not only ask what you can carry, they will care about what you have been carrying. Until then, let solitude do its gentle work. You are not friendless because you are worthless. You may be in a holy season where God is teaching you the difference between company and covenant. The original source says a woman with no friends knows the cost of emotional labor, what it means to carry other people's secrets, pain, and needs, while her own heart goes unnoticed. And beloved, there are women listening right now who know exactly what that feels like. You were the one people called when they were breaking. You were the one who answered late at night, the one who remembered details, the one who noticed tone changes, the one who could hear sadness behind the words, fear behind the laughter, exhaustion behind the I'm fine. You knew how to sit with other people's pain without rushing them. You knew how to make room. You knew how to hold silence gently. But who held you? That question may hurt because for a long time, you may not have allowed yourself to ask it. You may have been praised for being strong, dependable, mature, spiritual, wise, low maintenance. People may have said, "You always know what to say," without realizing that sometimes you were speaking from your own uncomforted wounds. They may have called you a blessing while never asking whether the blessing was tired. Beloved, being needed is not the same as being loved. Sometimes people need your strength but do not know how to honor your humanity. They need your listening but do not listen back. They need your wisdom but do not care about your weariness. They need your prayers but forget you also have battles. They need your calm but never ask what it costs you to remain calm while carrying so much. This is where many women lose themselves in friendships. Not because they are foolish, but because they have beautiful hearts. They care deeply. They feel responsible. They do not like seeing people hurt. They have learned to step in, smooth things over, offer help, give grace, explain away absence, excuse inconsistency, and make room for everyone else's limitations. But compassion without boundaries can become quiet self-destruction. Ask yourself gently, have I been calling it love when I am actually carrying more than God assigned to me? Have I been confusing being available with being valuable? Have I allowed people to depend on me in ways that keep them comfortable but keep me empty? Beloved, even Jesus withdrew. He loved people perfectly, yet he still went away to pray. He healed, taught, fed, comforted, and delivered. But he did not live as though every human demand was a divine assignment. He moved by the Father's voice, not by pressure, guilt, or the endless needs of the crowd. If Jesus honored solitude, why do you feel guilty for needing rest? If Jesus stepped away to pray, why do you believe you must always be reachable? If Jesus did not entrust himself to every person, why do you feel obligated to give everyone access to your deep? There is a sacred wisdom in learning that your heart is not a public place. Your tenderness is holy. Your time is finite. Your energy must be stewarded. Your peace must be guarded. Not everyone who comes close comes with the capacity to love you well. Not everyone who calls you friend understands the weight of that word. A true friend does not only come to empty their pain into your lap. A true friend also notices when your eyes are tired. A true friend asks questions and waits for the real answer. A true friend does not punish your boundaries. A true friend does not disappear when you stop being useful. A true friend does not require you to perform strength before you are worthy of care. Beloved, access to you is not a right. It is a privilege. That may sound strong to a woman who was taught to be endlessly available, but it is true. Your life belongs to God. Your body belongs to God. Your mind, time, spirit, and emotional capacity belong to God. You are not selfish for protecting what He gave you. You are not cruel for saying, I cannot carry this conversation tonight. You are not unloving for stepping back from relationships where you are always pouring and never replenished. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is stop pretending you are not tired, because exhaustion, when ignored, can become resentment. And resentment can make you angry at people you never set boundaries with. You may begin to feel bitter toward those you kept saying yes to, while the truth is, your soul was asking you to say no long before your mouth found the courage. God is not shaming you for this. He is teaching you. He is teaching you that love must have order, that compassion must have wisdom, that service must flow from obedience, not from fear of rejection, that helping others should not require you to abandon the woman He is trying to heal. Beloved, if solitude has entered your life, it may be because God is giving you time to recover from being emotionally overdrawn. He may be showing you where your generosity became survival. He may be revealing how often you gave because you feared losing people, not because He asked you to. He may be teaching you to give from overflow instead of depletion. And yes, this season may feel strange. When you have been the listener for so long, silence can feel unfamiliar. When you have been the fixer, rest can feel irresponsible. When you have been the strong one, admitting need can feel almost shameful. But you are not less faithful because you are human. You are not less loving because you have limits. You are not less valuable when you are not useful. You are loved before you help. You are worthy before you give. You are precious even when you have nothing left to offer anyone but your honest breath and tired prayers. So let God teach you how to be cared for. Let Him bring people who know how to listen, not just speak. Let Him help you recognize friendships that are mutual, safe, consistent, and truthful. Let Him heal the belief that you must earn your place through emotional labor. A woman with no friends may not be empty. She may be in recovery. She may be learning that the right people will not only need her strength, they will honor her soul. The original source says a woman with no friends is often deeply observant. She notices how people change when they no longer need something from her, how affection can turn into absence, and how some connections exist only for a season. Beloved, that kind of seeing does not come cheaply. Discernment is often born in disappointment. Not because disappointment is good, but because God can use what hurts you to open your eyes. There are things you only learn after the room becomes quiet. There are patterns you only recognize after you stop making excuses. There are people you only understand after you no longer need them to be who you hoped they were. When a woman has been alone for a season, she begins to notice what noise once covered. She sees who only comes when they need advice. She sees who celebrates her in public but competes with her in private. She sees who loves her strength but is uncomfortable with her need. She sees who asks for grace but never gives accountability. She sees who calls her sister but disappears when the relationship requires sacrifice. And at first, that scene can break your heart. Because discernment often begins with grief. You may grieve the friendships you thought would last. You may grieve the women you trusted with parts of yourself. You may grieve the conversations that used to feel safe. You may grieve the version of the connection you carried in your imagination, even after the reality kept disappointing you. Beloved, let yourself grieve. Do not rush to spiritualize the ache away. Do not say it does not matter when it mattered deeply. Do not pretend you are above needing friendship. You are human. You were created for connection. Even in the garden, before sin, before shame, before betrayal, God said it was not good for man to be alone. So the pain you feel when friendship fails is not weakness. It is evidence that your heart was made to love and be loved. But grief must not become bitterness. Bitterness says, I will never trust again. Discernment says, I will trust with wisdom. Bitterness says, everyone is the same. Discernment says, I will let people reveal themselves over time. Bitterness closes the heart and calls it protection. Discernment guards the heart and keeps it alive. Ask yourself gently, has my solitude made me clearer or has it made me colder? Am I releasing people with peace or am I rehearsing the wound until it becomes my identity? Am I learning from what happened or am I building a wall where God wanted to build wisdom? These questions matter because the enemy would love to turn your quiet season into a prison. He would love to convince you that because some people failed you, no one can be trusted. He would love to turn your disappointment into suspicion, your standards into isolation, your self-respect into hardness. But God has another plan. He wants your solitude to sharpen your discernment without stealing your tenderness. That is holy maturity. A healed woman does not ignore red flags, but she also does not make every person pay for what someone else did. She does not rush into connection, but she does not worship distance. She does not hand her heart to everyone, but she does not bury it either. She learns to walk slowly, pray deeply, observe patiently, and let consistency speak louder than charm. Beloved, consistency is one of the clearest languages of love. Not perfect consistency, because everyone is human, but steady care, honest presence, mutual effort, words that match actions, apologies that come with change, affection that does not disappear the moment you stop being useful, friendship that can survive truth, boundaries, and seasons where you are not performing strength. You are allowed to wait for that. You are allowed to stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. Some people feel close quickly because they overshare, flatter, cling, or create emotional urgency. But urgency is not always connection. Sometimes it is a wound looking for somewhere to land. True friendship does not demand immediate access to your deepest places. It grows with reverence. It respects pace. It does not punish you for needing time. A woman in solitude learns this because she has stopped being desperate to fill space. She would rather sit alone with peace than sit among people who make her question her worth. She would rather have quiet evenings than conversations that leave her spirit heavy. She would rather wait on God than force herself into circles where she must laugh at what grieves her and silence what is true in her. This is not pride. This is stewardship. You are stewarding the heart God gave you. You are stewarding the peace He restored after years of chaos. You are stewarding your time, your body, your emotional capacity, your spiritual sensitivity. You are learning that not every invitation deserves your yes. Not every familiar person deserves the old access. Not every open door leads to a healthy room. And when you began living this way, some people will misunderstand you. They may say you think you are better. They may say you have changed. They may say you are difficult to reach now. But beloved, sometimes difficult to reach means you are finally not available for misuse. Sometimes changed means God healed the part of you that kept returning to places that drained you. Let them misunderstand what they refuse to honor. You do not owe everyone an explanation for your healing. In this season, let God teach you how to observe without becoming suspicious, how to let go without revenge, how to walk away without needing the last word. There is dignity in leaving quietly when a relationship no longer carries truth. There is strength in not dragging your pain through public places for validation. There is grace in blessing what was good, admitting what became unhealthy, and moving forward without hatred. Beloved, your quiet life may be more honest now. It may have fewer voices, but more peace. Fewer invitations, but more clarity. Fewer people around you, but more of yourself returned to you. You may laugh alone and discover joy does not require an audience. You may cry alone and discover tears are safe when God is near. You may pray alone and discover heaven hears what people never notice. This is not emptiness. This is recovery. This is the soul stretching out after years of being crowded by expectation. And in that space, God is teaching you that you can be loving without being naive, open without being reckless, forgiving without being available, and alone without being abandoned. The original source says, "A woman with no friends has unlearned the lie that her value is measured by how many people want her, call her, invite her, or surround her." Beloved, this is one of the deepest freedoms a woman can receive from God. The freedom to stop counting people as proof of her worth. The world teaches women to measure themselves by visibility. How many messages came in? How many people remembered? How many invitations were offered? How many friends appeared in the photo? How many women called her sister? How many people noticed when she was absent? How many people made room for her at the table? And when the number is small, shame begins to whisper. Maybe something is wrong with me. Maybe I am too hard to love. Maybe I am forgettable. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe if I were more fun, more useful, more available, more agreeable, they would have stayed. Beloved, not every empty chair is an indictment against you. Sometimes an empty chair is evidence that you finally stopped offering sacred access to people who only knew how to consume your presence. Sometimes the quiet phone is not proof that you are unwanted. It is proof that the old patterns have lost their doorway. Sometimes the absence of shallow company is the beginning of deep peace. You were never created to be validated by a crowd. You were created to be loved by God, known by Him, held by Him, guided by Him, and then connected to people who can honor the woman He is forming in you. But connection was never meant to become your identity. Friendship is a gift. It is not a mirror that determines whether you are valuable. Ask yourself gently, have I been measuring my worth by who stays close to me? Have I allowed other people's absence to define my value? Have I mistaken being unseen by people for being unseen by God? Beloved, God sees you in the quiet. He sees the evenings when no one checks on you. He sees the birthdays that feel thinner than you expected. He sees the moments when you pretend solitude does not hurt because you do not want to seem needy. He sees the ache of desiring friendship while refusing to settle for relationships that make you disappear. And He does not shame you for that ache. The desire for healthy friendship is holy, but the desperation for any friendship can become dangerous. When a woman has not yet learned her worth, she may accept people who drain her just so she can avoid silence. She may chase conversations that leave her anxious. She may return to circles where she is tolerated, not treasured. She may laugh at jokes that bruise her spirit, ignore comments that diminish her, and stay connected to people who make her feel lonely in their presence. Beloved, there are worse things than sitting alone. One of them is sitting among people who make you abandon yourself. Solitude can feel heavy, yes. But false belonging is heavier. Silence can ache, yes. But pretending is more exhausting. Waiting for the right people can test your heart, yes. But forcing yourself into the wrong spaces can wound your spirit again and again. A woman who is healing learns that peace is not boring. Peace may feel unfamiliar at first because chaos trained your nervous system to expect intensity. If friendship once meant drama, jealousy, competition, gossip, emotional urgency, or constant crisis, then peace may seem too quiet to trust. You may wonder if something is missing when no one is pulling at you. You may feel strange when your days are not filled with emotional noise. But sometimes what feels empty is actually spacious. God may be giving your soul room to think without interference, room to pray without performance, room to dream again, room to remember what you like, what you need, what you believe, what you value, room to become whole instead of being scattered across everyone else's expectations. Beloved, a woman with no friends in this season may be becoming her own sanctuary. Not in a proud way, not in a closed way, but in a healed way. She is learning to sit with her own heart without running from it. She is learning to celebrate small victories without needing applause. She is learning to cry without turning her pain into a performance. She is learning to rest without proving she deserves it. She is learning that ordinary days still matter when no one is watching, and God is in those ordinary days. He is in the quiet cup of tea. He is in the walk taken alone. He is in the journal page where truth finally appears. He is in the prayer whispered from a tired bed. He is in the scripture that meets you at the exact place of your ache. He is in the silence that slowly stops feeling like abandonment and begins to feel like shelter. Beloved, being chosen by yourself is not selfish when you have spent years abandoning yourself to be chosen by others. To choose yourself means you stop volunteering for relationships that make you feel invisible. It means you stop begging people to offer what they have repeatedly shown they cannot give. It means you stop calling crumbs a feast because you are afraid no one else will invite you to the table. It means you stop letting loneliness push you back into places God already delivered you from. This does not mean you stop needing people. It means you stop needing people more than you need truth. It means you can desire friendship without worshiping it. It means you can welcome connection without handing it the power to name you. It means you can enjoy being loved without being destroyed by being alone. That is freedom. And one day, when true friendships enter your life, they will meet a woman who is not starving. They will meet a woman who can love without clinging, give without disappearing, listen without losing herself, and receive without suspicion. They will meet a woman whose solitude did not make her bitter. It made her rooted. Until then, do not despise this quiet season. Let God fill it with meaning. Let Him heal what false friendship wounded. Let Him teach you that your value is not proven by the crowd around you, but by the truth He placed within you. You are not less worthy because fewer people are near. You are not less loved because this season is quiet. You are not less whole because you are walking alone. Beloved, your worth was never in the number of people beside you. It was always in the God who never left. The original source says, walking alone can teach a woman how to stand firm in ways no crowd ever could. And beloved, there are lessons God teaches in solitude that popularity could never teach, because when there is no one beside you to lean on, you begin to discover where your real foundation is. At first, walking alone may feel exposed. There is no crowd to hide inside, no constant voices to distract you from your own thoughts. No one to immediately reassure you when fear rises. No one to applaud every step. No one to tell you who you are before you have sat still long enough to hear God speak over you. And that can feel frightening, because many women were taught to borrow certainty from other people. They learned to ask, "What do you think?" before they ask, "Lord, what are you showing me?" They learned to measure decisions by approval, not peace. They learned to trust the room more than their own discernment. They learned to feel safe only when someone else agreed with them. But solitude has a way of bringing all borrowed confidence to the surface. It shows you where your strength was dependent on applause. It shows you where your identity was leaning on being needed. It shows you where your choices were shaped by fear of disappointing people. It shows you where your yes was not agreement, but anxiety. It shows you where your no never came because you were terrified of being left. Beloved, this seeing is not meant to shame you. It is meant to free you. God may allow a season of walking alone so you can stop building your identity on unstable ground. He may lead you into quiet places so you can learn the strength of standing with Him before you stand with anyone else. He may remove the noise so you can finally ask, "Who am I when no one is choosing me? Who am I when no one is praising me? Who am I when no one is calling my name?" And the answer, if you let God give it, will be deeper than any friendship could provide. You are his daughter. Before you are someone's friend, sister, helper, counselor, listener, supporter, wife, mother, leader, or safe place, you are his. That truth must become more than a sentence. It must become the ground under your feet. Because when your identity is rooted in God, you can receive friendship as a gift without making it your source. Ask yourself gently, have I been using relationships to avoid learning how to stand? Have I been afraid of being alone because I do not yet trust the woman I am with when everyone else leaves? Have I mistaken dependence for love because standing on my own felt too unfamiliar? Beloved, standing firm does not mean never feeling afraid. It means fear no longer gets to choose your direction. There will be lonely days when doubt speaks loudly. It may ask, did you make the wrong choice? Should you have tolerated more? Should you call them? Should you go back? Should you lower the standard just to avoid this quiet? Fear will try to convince you that solitude is failure because fear does not understand preparation. Fear does not understand pruning. Fear does not understand that God often builds roots in hidden places before he allows fruit to be seen. Roots grow in silence. They do not clap for themselves. They do not announce progress. They do not need an audience. They go deep because the tree will one day need strength the surface cannot provide. And beloved, God may be doing root work in you right now. The quiet may feel slow, but something deep is being strengthened. Your values are being clarified. Your discernment is being sharpened. Your emotional dependency is being healed. Your ability to choose from peace instead of panic is being formed. That is not wasted time. That is foundation. A woman who walks alone with God begins to trust her judgment again. She learns from mistakes without collapsing into shame. She takes responsibility without hating herself. She makes decisions without polling every opinion. She learns the difference between support and dependence. Support strengthens you. Dependence makes you afraid to move unless someone else moves with you. Godly friendship should support your obedience, not replace your relationship with God. There is a great difference. When you depend too deeply on people, their absence can feel like the absence of God. But when solitude teaches you his nearness, people can come and go without your whole identity shaking. You may grieve. You may miss them. You may desire connection, but you do not fall apart as if your life has lost all meaning, because your meaning is not held in human hands. Beloved, solitude can also remove the temptation to perform. When no one is watching, you begin to discover what is real. Do you still pray when no one praises your spirituality? Do you still grow when no one sees your effort? Do you still choose integrity when no one rewards your discipline? Do you still speak kindly to yourself when no one is there to affirm you? This is where character is built, not on the stage, in the quiet. The woman who can walk alone without abandoning herself becomes steady in a way that cannot be easily shaken. She stops adjusting her convictions to fit the nearest crowd. She stops softening her truth to purchase approval. She stops confusing being liked with being aligned. She learns that a life pleasing to God may sometimes look lonely to people who do not understand purpose, and that loneliness does not mean you are lost. Sometimes it means you are being led. Beloved, if you are in a season where you are walking alone, do not curse the road too quickly. Let it train your feet. Let it teach you your pace. Let it show you what you believe when no one is echoing it back. Let it reveal where fear has been pretending to be wisdom. Let it build a strength in you that is not loud, not harsh, not defensive, but rooted. One day, when companionship comes, you will not enter it desperate. You will enter it whole. You will not cling from fear. You will choose from peace. You will not need someone to become your spine. You will welcome people beside you because you have already learned how to stand. And that, beloved, is a sacred kind of strength. The original source says being alone sharpened discernment, not bitterness, because solitude gave her enough space to see clearly instead of reacting emotionally. And beloved, that is one of the most beautiful things God can do with a quiet season. He can turn what felt like absence into clarity. When the noise fades, patterns become easier to see. You begin to notice who only appears when they need something. You begin to recognize which conversations leave your spirit heavy. You begin to see the difference between someone who values your presence and someone who only values your usefulness. You begin to understand that not every person who laughs with you is loyal to you. Not every apology carries change, and not every emotional connection is safe enough to hold your heart. This scene can be painful at first, because clarity often arrives with grief. You may realize you stayed too long in friendships that were slowly draining you. You may realize you called inconsistency, busy, disrespect, personality, jealousy, concern, and emotional distance just how they are. You may realize that you kept explaining away what God was trying to expose. You may realize that the discomfort you kept ignoring was not anxiety, but discernment knocking softly at the door of your soul. Beloved, do not shame yourself for what you did not see before. Sometimes you could not see because you were too busy trying to be chosen. Sometimes you ignored the signs because your heart wanted the connection to be real. Sometimes you stayed because the thought of being alone felt more frightening than the pain of being unseen. God is not condemning you for that. He is teaching you now. Discernment is not bitterness. Bitterness says, everyone will hurt me. Discernment says, I will pay attention to pattern. Bitterness says, no one deserves access. Discernment says, access must be earned through trust. Bitterness says, I will close my heart. Discernment says, I will guard my heart while keeping it alive. There is a holy difference. A woman being healed by God does not become suspicious of everyone. She becomes attentive. She learns to listen beyond words. She watches consistency over charm. She notices whether someone's kindness remains when they are not getting what they want. She observes how people respond to her boundaries, her growth, her joy, her silence, her need, her truth. Because character is revealed not only by how people treat you when you are useful, but how they treat you when you are honest. Ask yourself gently, have I confused discernment with being judgmental? Have I ignored the Holy Spirit's warning because I did not want to seem difficult? Have I allowed my desire for connection to silence the wisdom God was giving me? Beloved, discernment is a gift, but it must be surrendered to love. If you use discernment only to protect yourself, it may become armor. But if you allow God to guide it, it becomes wisdom. It helps you love with open eyes. It helps you forgive without returning to harm. It helps you show compassion without volunteering to be someone else's emotional dumping ground. It helps you bless people from a distance when closeness would cost your peace. Solitude teaches you to stop chasing closure from people who thrive in confusion. It teaches you that actions are often clearer than explanations. It teaches you that some conversations will never give you the honesty you are hoping for. It teaches you that if someone repeatedly shows you they cannot handle your heart with care, you do not have to keep presenting your heart as evidence. You are allowed to accept what has already been shown. That acceptance may feel quiet. It may not come with drama. You may not need a final confrontation, a long message, a public announcement, or the last word. Sometimes discernment simply adjusts your availability. It lowers expectations. It steps back. It stops initiating what is never reciprocated. It stops explaining what another person is committed to misunderstanding. That is not revenge. That is wisdom in motion. Beloved, being alone can also reveal your own patterns. Discernment is not only about seeing others clearly, it is also about seeing yourself honestly. You may begin to notice where you overgave because you wanted to be needed, where you stayed silent because you feared rejection, where you confused intensity with intimacy, where you ignored your body's discomfort because someone's words sounded convincing, where you kept choosing familiar pain because unfamiliar peace felt strange. This kind of honesty can humble you, but it will also free you. Because once you see your pattern, you no longer have to repeat it unconsciously. You can pause. You can pray. You can ask, Lord, is this connection bringing peace or pulling me back into performance? Am I responding from love or fear? Am I giving because you led me or because I am afraid they will leave if I do not? Those questions will save your life. A woman with God-given discernment learns to trust peace, not drama. She learns that emotional excitement is not always emotional safety. She learns that someone can feel familiar and still be unhealthy. She learns that chemistry is not covenant, attention is not affection, and shared history is not the same as present honor. She becomes selective, not cynical. She becomes careful, not cold. She becomes slower to open, not because she has no love, but because she understands that vulnerability is sacred. She no longer throws her deepest self into every space that offers temporary warmth. She waits to see whether warmth becomes consistency, whether words become action, whether interest becomes care, whether apology becomes change. Beloved, this is what solitude can teach when you let God sit with you in it. It teaches you to hear your inner voice without interruption. It teaches you to stop arguing with your own discomfort. It teaches you to stop needing other people to validate what your spirit already knows. It teaches you that peace is a language, and when something repeatedly disturbs it, you are allowed to pay attention. You do not have to become bitter to become wise. You do not have to become hard to become protected. You do not have to stop loving people to stop losing yourself. Let this quiet season sharpen your discernment and preserve your tenderness. Let God make you wise enough to recognize what drains you, brave enough to release what dishonors you, and soft enough to receive the right people when they come. Because the goal is not to live forever guarded. The goal is to live guided. The original source says wholeness does not require an audience, because some of the deepest growth happens in quiet hours when no one is watching, applauding, or affirming your becoming. And beloved, This is where the woman who once feared being alone begins to understand something sacred. Your life is still real when no one is witnessing it. Your healing is still holy when no one congratulates you. Your growth still matters when no one notices. Your prayers still rise when no one hears them. Your worth is still intact when the room is empty. For a long time, you may have believed that being seen meant being valuable. You may have felt more real when people responded to you, praised you, invited you, needed you, or chose you. Their attention became a mirror, and you learned to search that mirror for proof that you mattered. But mirrors can distort. Applause can disappear. People can celebrate you in one season and forget you in another. If your identity depends on being witnessed, then every quiet season will feel like erasure. But God does not need a crowd to confirm what He created. He saw you before anyone knew your name. He formed you in hiddenness. He watched over you in places where no one else understood your pain. He counted tears no one asked about. He heard prayers you were too tired to speak properly. He saw the strength it took to keep going when there was no encouragement, no audience, no friend beside you saying, "I see how hard this is." Beloved, hidden does not mean forgotten. Sometimes hidden means protected. Sometimes hidden means planted. Sometimes hidden means God is doing root work that cannot be rushed by public attention. Ask yourself gently, have I been treating invisibility like rejection? Have I been measuring my healing by how many people recognize it? Have I forgotten that God often builds the deepest things in silence? A woman who learns to be alone with God becomes difficult to deceive. She no longer rushes into friendship simply to escape herself. She no longer accepts shallow connection because silence makes her uncomfortable. She no longer performs joy, strength, spirituality, or success just so others will know she is doing well. She begins to live from truth, not display. That is freedom. There's something powerful about the woman who can celebrate privately. She can make progress and not announce it. She can heal and not prove it. She can outgrow old patterns without explaining every step. She can make a quiet decision on a Tuesday afternoon that changes the direction of her life, and heaven knows, even if people do not. Beloved, not every transformation needs witnesses to be real. Some of your most important victories may never become stories anyone hears. The night you did not text the person who kept draining you. The morning you prayed instead of spiraling. The moment you chose rest without guilt. The conversation you did not chase. The boundary you kept even while your hands trembled. The old habit you interrupted quietly. The harsh thought you replaced with grace. The pain you finally admitted to God without pretending. These are holy victories. Do not despise them because they are quiet. The world loves visible success, but God loves faithful becoming. The world asks, who saw it? God asks, was your heart true? The world asks, did they clap? God asks, did you obey? The world asks, how many stood with you? God asks, did you stand with me? Beloved, solitude teaches you that identity does not require witnesses. It requires agreement with God. It requires consistency. It requires returning to yourself again and again when old fear tries to scatter you across other people's opinions. It requires learning to sit with your own soul and not abandon it because no one else has arrived yet. This is not isolation. This is inner cohesion. You can still desire friendship. You can still pray for godly women, safe companionship, honest sisterhood, tender laughter, and people who know how to stay. Desire for connection is not weakness, but now connection becomes a gift, not a lifeline. Friendship becomes sharing, not survival. Love becomes chosen, not chased. And when the right people come, they will meet a woman who has learned how to belong to herself before trying to belong to a circle. They will meet a woman who does not cling out of panic. A woman who can listen without losing herself. A woman who can love deeply but not recklessly. A woman who can be vulnerable with discernment, generous with wisdom, open with patience, and kind without self-betrayal. That is what solitude can produce when God is in it. It does not have to make you bitter. It can make you rooted. So if this season is quiet, do not waste it by hating yourself for being alone. Let God use it. Let Him restore the parts of you that were scattered across relationships that never honored your heart. Let Him teach you what peace feels like in your body. Let Him show you the difference between missing people and missing the version of yourself who once believed she needed them to feel complete. Let Him mother the places that feel abandoned. Let Him father the places that feel unprotected. Let Him become the friend who stays close when human friendship feels far away. Beloved, you are not broken because your circle is small. You are not behind because your life is quiet. You are not less feminine, less lovable, less chosen, or less worthy because you are walking through a season with few people beside you. The absence of a crowd does not mean the absence of purpose. Sometimes God will reduce the noise so the calling can become clear. Walk slowly. Walk honestly. Walk with your heart soft and your discernment awake. Do not let disappointment turn into bitterness. Do not let solitude become shame. Do not let the world convince you that a woman without many friends is a woman without value. You are still becoming. You are still held. You are still seen. You are still loved. And one day, whether your circle grows or remains small, you will know this truth in your bones. Your life is valid even in silence. Your growth is real even when unseen. Your presence is enough even without recognition. Your wholeness is not granted by others. It is cultivated with God, breath by breath, choice by choice, prayer by prayer, in the quiet place where you finally stopped performing and came home to yourself. A woman with no friends is not always abandoned. Sometimes she is being restored. Sometimes she is being refined. Sometimes she is being prepared for relationships that will not require her to disappear. And until they come, she walks with God, not empty, not ashamed, not broken, but whole enough to know that even when she walks alone, she is never truly alone.